Bedtime Stories for Kids, Peter Pan. It was a quiet, starlit evening in London. Gas lamps flickered along the cobbled streets, and a warm light glowed through the windows of number 14, the home of the Darling family. Inside, 3 children were being tucked into bed. "Tell us one more story, Wendy," little Michael pleaded, clutching his teddy bear. "Yes, please," added John, pushing his glasses up the bridge of his nose. Wendy Darling, the eldest, smiled as she pulled the blankets up to Michael's chin. "All right, one more," she said, sitting on the edge of the bed. "Let me tell you about the brave and mischievous boy who lives in Neverland, the one who can fly, who fights pirates, and who never, ever grows up, Peter Pan." The boys cried in unison. Wendy nodded. "He lives with the lost boys, who don't have a mother, so he brought me to Neverland to tell them stories just like this." "Do you think he's real?" Michael asked, eyes wide. "Of course," Wendy whispered. "Sometimes, when the wind is just right, I think I can hear him laughing in the sky." What they didn't know was that Peter Pan was very real, and he was listening from the open nursery window. Crouched on the sill, his tousled red-brown hair catching the moonlight, Peter grinned. Beside him, a tiny fairy buzzed impatiently. "Well," said Tinker Bell, her wings flickering with golden light, "are you going to get your shadow back or just sit here smiling like a fool?" Peter whispered. She then tiptoed into the room. He crept quietly toward the dresser and pulled open the bottom drawer. There it was, his shadow, folded neatly like a scarf. But when he tried to stick it back with soap, it wouldn't hold. "Blast!" he muttered, stomping his foot. "What's wrong?" a sleepy voice asked. Wendy sat up, rubbing her eyes. Peter turned sharply, startled, then puffed out his chest. "I'm Peter Pan," he declared. Wendy blinked. "You're real, and I'm here for my shadow." She climbed out of bed, examining the fluttering, loose shape. "You sewed this on wrong. You need thread and a needle, not soap. Can you do it?" "Of course I can." She sat him down gently and began to stitch the shadow to his shoes with delicate, practiced hands. Peter watched her, wide-eyed. "You're very clever," he said softly. When she finished, Peter leaped up and twirled midair. "I have my shadow back. Oh, I feel brilliant." He hovered inches off the floor, laughing. Wendy's heart thudded. "You can fly." Peter nodded proudly. "I can teach you. Come with me to Neverland." "To Neverland," she repeated. "Yes, you can tell stories to the lost boys. They need a mother. You'd be perfect." Wendy hesitated. "What about John and Michael? They can come too," Peter said with a wink. "We'll all fly together." The boys were already awake, of course, wide-eyed and sitting up. "Did someone say fly?" John asked eagerly. Peter reached into a pouch at his side and pulled out a handful of sparkling dust. "Fairy dust," he explained. "Tink, help me out." Tinker Bell grumbled, but shook glittering gold dust over each child. "Now," Peter said, "think happy thoughts." "What kind?" Michael asked. "Anything that makes your heart feel lighter than air." Wendy thought of warm tea, of stars, of stories. John thought of sword fights and summer picnics. Michael pictured flying teddy bears. And suddenly, they were rising off the ground, floating toward the ceiling, laughter bubbling from their lips. "We're flying," Wendy gasped. "I'm really doing it," John cried. "Teddy too," squeaked Michael. Peter zoomed toward the window. "Come on, second star to the right and straight on till morning." And with that, they soared out into the night, a trail of stardust behind them, London far below, and Neverland waiting just beyond the clouds. The night air was crisp and cool as they flew across the city. London's rooftops faded into mist, and the stars sparkled all around them. Beneath their feet, clouds rolled like waves. Peter flew loops around the others, laughing. "Straight on till morning," he shouted. "We're nearly there." As the first light of dawn touched the sky, a strange island emerged through the fog with jagged mountains, deep jungles, silver rivers, and pirate ships anchored off rocky cliffs. "Is that Neverland?" Wendy asked, her voice in awe. Peter nodded. "That's Mermaid Lagoon," he said, pointing, "and over there is the Indian encampment. The pirates sail that cove, and down there, that's where the Lost Boys live." They swooped lower into the trees and landed at the mouth of a hollow tree. Beneath the roots, a cozy underground hideout opened up, filled with hammocks, makeshift tables, and maps drawn in crayon. Inside were 6 boys, each dressed in wild animal furs and patched clothes. They rushed to Peter with cheers. "Peter's back. Who are they?" one of them asked, pointing at Wendy and her brothers. "This is Wendy," Peter announced. "She's going to be your new mother." Wendy blinked. "Mother, but I'm only..." "You'll tell stories," Peter said quickly, "and tuck us in, and scold us when we fight. That's what mothers do." The Lost Boys gathered around her, smiling hopefully. "Can we have bedtime stories? Do you know any with dragons? Will you sing us lullabies?" Wendy looked at their eager faces and nodded. "Yes, I suppose I can do that." Life in Neverland was full of wonder. The children swam in sparkling lagoons where mermaids sang and splashed. They climbed trees that grew sweets and slid down waterfalls that glowed in moonlight. Peter led sword fights against imaginary pirates, and John and Michael took to it eagerly. But Neverland wasn't all play. One day, Peter returned from scouting the island with news. "Captain Hook is nearby." The Lost Boys gasped. "He's looking for me," Peter said with a grin, "and I'm going to give him something to find." That evening, while the children sat around a fire listening to Wendy tell the story of Cinderella, a shadow crept through the trees. It was Captain Hook. Hook was tall and sharp, with long black hair, a wide feathered hat, and a sinister metal hook in place of one hand, the very hand Peter had once cut off. "Tick-tock," he muttered, clutching his coat. "That cursed crocodile is still following me." He slipped closer to the hideout, peering through the trees. "So this is where Pan hides. And that girl, she must be the storyteller." He hatched a plan, a dark one. Meanwhile, the Lost Boys curled around Wendy as she finished the story. "And then the prince found the glass slipper," she said softly, "and it fit perfectly. So they lived happily ever after." "What's a prince?" asked Curly. "Does he fight with swords?" Toodles added. Wendy laughed. "Yes, and he listens." Peter sat nearby, quiet. He didn't like the idea of princes, or growing up. "Wendy," he said suddenly, "you'll stay, won't you? You'll be our mother forever." Wendy's smile faded. "Peter, I can't stay forever. I miss my real mother. I think it's time to go home." Peter's face darkened. "Why would you want to go back?" "There's nothing out there but rules and growing up." "But my mother loves me," Wendy said gently, "and she must be so worried." Peter stood, fists clenched. "Fine, go back if you want. See if I care." He turned and flew off into the night, leaving silence behind. Wendy's heart sank. "He doesn't understand," she whispered. But Hook had been listening, and he was already moving into place. That night, as the stars shimmered over Neverland, a soft knock came at the tree's hidden door. Wendy answered, blinking into the darkness. There stood a small pirate boy, or so he claimed, holding a lantern. "Please," he said timidly, "Captain Hook has captured Tiger Lily. He's taking her to Skull Rock. Peter's not here. You have to help." The Lost Boys hesitated. "What do we do, Wendy?" Nibs whispered. "We must help her," Wendy said firmly. "It's the right thing to do." One by one, the children followed the pirate into the trees. But it was a trap. As they neared the edge of the cliffs, pirates leaped from the shadows. Nets dropped, swords clanged. Wendy and the Lost Boys were captured and dragged aboard the Jolly Roger, which is Hook's great black ship. Wendy struggled in her ropes as Hook loomed above them. "So you're the little storyteller," he sneered. "How touching. Let us go." Wendy shouted. "Oh, I will," Hook smiled cruelly, "once you've walked the plank." The children were tied to the mast. The crew roared with laughter as they prepared the plank. Below, the crocodile circled. Hook stood proudly, stroking his mustache. "And now," he declared, "Pan has no one to save." But he was wrong. Peter had returned. High above, hidden in the sails, Peter crouched silently. Tinker Bell zipped beside him, face set with determination. "They took her," she whispered. "All of them." Peter nodded, his eyes cold. "Then we take her back." He swooped down with a roar. "Hook!" The pirates spun, startled. Peter flew like a streak of fire, cutting ropes, untying the children, dodging blades. Tinker Bell blinded the crew with bursts of light. "He's back!" shrieked Smee. Wendy grabbed Michael and John, pulling them close. "Stay down." Peter and Hook clashed in the center of the deck. "You'll never win, Pan." Hook growled, swinging his hook. "I always win," Peter said, grinning, "because I'm never afraid." Their swords rang out over the waves, sparks flying with each strike. Hook lunged. Peter twisted midair and kicked Hook backward straight over the railing. The tick-tock echoed from the water below. "No," Hook cried. "Not again." The crocodile's snout broke the surface, and with a yelp, Hook swam for his life. The pirates fled. The ship was quiet. The lost boys cheered. Peter stood at the bow, wind in his hair. Wendy ran to him. "You came back." He nodded, then looked away. "I was angry. I thought you didn't care." "Of course I care," Wendy said softly. "But I need to go home." "We all do." Peter looked out at the horizon. "Will you forget me?" "Never." He turned back to her and gave a small, sad smile. "Then let's take you home." The Jolly Roger, now a ship of victory and joy, lifted from the water. With fairy dust sparkling from the sails and Tinker Bell guiding the way, it sailed through the sky, over forests and oceans, toward London. Wendy stood at the bow, watching the stars slide by. Michael leaned against her side, yawning. John gazed down at the darkened cities far below. "Will it be the same?" Wendy asked softly. "You'll see," Peter said. "Nothing ever changes. Unless you let it." But Wendy knew better. Children do change. The ship floated down over Kensington Gardens, over rooftops and chimneys, until it stopped just outside the open window of the Darling nursery. Inside, the room looked just as they had left it, and waiting by the fireplace, her hands pressed over her heart, was Mrs. Darling. When Wendy stepped inside, her mother gasped, then ran to her, pulling her close. "Wendy, John, Michael," she whispered, tears falling. "I knew you'd come back." The children wept and laughed, hugging their father too, as he entered the room. "I dreamed you were flying," Mr. Darling said, "and now, here you are." The lost boys stood nervously in the shadows. Wendy turned to her parents. "They have no one," she said. "No mother, no home. Can they stay?" Mrs. Darling opened her arms. "Of course they can." Cheers erupted. But Peter stayed by the window. "Aren't you coming in?" Wendy asked. Peter shook his head. "I don't belong here." "You could." He smiled sadly. "I'd have to grow up, and I won't. I can't." Wendy reached out. "You'll forget me." "Never," Peter said. "Not a single story, not a single laugh." He took her hand. "Promise me something. Anything. Tell your stories. Keep the window open, so other children will remember." Wendy nodded. Peter kissed her on the cheek, a soft, weightless thing, and stepped onto the windowsill. "Second star to the right," he whispered, and straight on till morning. And then he was gone. Years passed. The nursery changed. The children grew. Wendy became a mother, and one spring night, as moonlight bathed the curtains and the window stood open, she heard the soft jingle of fairy bells. A shadow flitted past. Peter stood there, just the same as always. But Wendy had changed. "Hello, Peter," she said gently. He blinked. "You're grown." "Yes." She stepped aside, revealing a small girl with curious eyes and untamed curls. "This is Jane, my daughter." Peter's eyes lit up. "Would you like to fly, Jane?" Jane looked at her mother. Wendy smiled. "Go? It's your turn now." And with that, Peter and Jane flew out into the night, laughter echoing behind them, stars swirling above, because so long as children dream and windows stay open, Peter Pan will always come back.